If you've ever looked through any general music theory book not specifically written for guitar, you've most likely been exposed to the various four-part seventh chord families and their inversions. Now, if you're not familiar how to convert them to drop voicings, you might have attempted to play those chords on the fretboard only to realize that they are almost physically impossible to do so. For example, let's take a C major 7 chord in third inversion where the notes from low to high are B, that's the 7th, then C, and then an E, which is the 3rd, and finally we need to place a G, which is the 5th there, but boy, like I said, it's physically impossible to play on guitar. This is reserved for keyboard players only. And even though we guitarists might not be able to play those closed voicings, the good news is that we have quite a variety of alternatives to choose from. And this is where drop voicings come to the rescue. I'm sure most of you already know what drop voicings are, but for those of you who are newbies, it simply consists of dropping one or two of the notes in a closed seventh chord down an octave. For those of you joining me for the first time, I'm Richie Zellen, and in this lesson, I am going to show you everything you need to know about drop voicings and how to apply them throughout the fretboard. As I demonstrate this procedure, I will also show you over what string sets you can play each of the 4 drop voicing types. And there are a total of 9. I will also talk about how to group them into 2-5-1 cadences, and last but not least, how to incorporate upper extensions in drop voicings. We're starting out with a C7 in root position. Fortunately, this one, although rarely used by guitarists, is playable only on the first 4 strings, with some stretching, that is. So, to create a drop 2 voicing, all we do is drop the second note from the top down an octave. In order to play it, we have to rearrange the notes, and we get this. Here it is in string group 1, 2, 3, and 4, but we can also play it strings 2, 3, 4, and 5, and finally strings 3, 4, 5, and 6. You will note as we progress through this study that drop 2 voicings are the most common type of 7th chord voicing used by guitarists. And that is mainly because drop 2 is the only one of the drop voicing types that you can play on groups of 4 consecutive strings. So I'm sure you will be familiar with many of these shapes. And that said, you will note that all the remaining drop voicing types feature a string skip in their configuration. Okay, to create a drop 3 voicing, all we do is drop the 3rd note from the top down an octave. So from this, we get this. And drop 3 voicings can be played on strings 1, 2, 3, and 5, and also on groups 2, 3, 4, and 6. Drop 3 is the second most used type of drop voicing used by guitarists. Next, for the 3rd drop type, we drop both the 2nd and 3rd notes from the chord down an octave. And along with the 4th type, drop 2 and 3 is not that commonly used by guitarists. So these voicings can usually be played on string groups 1, 3, 4, and 5, and it would be like this. This can also be played up here. It's very hard to play all the notes at the same time, but... And this one will sometimes yield some non-practical results because it sometimes places some of the drop voices in a very low and muddy register. So use your ear for this one. Also, you will find that it is very impractical when it comes to major chords in second inversion because the resulting shapes are almost impossible to play. The fourth category is the drop 2 and 4. And I believe it is the least used on guitar, probably because of its awkward note distribution on string groups 1, 2, 4, and 5, and 2, 3, 5, and 6. And I should also add that some of these yield those interesting Alan Holdsworth sounding voicings, especially, as we'll see later, when we incorporate upper extensions. So here is the C7 with drop 2 and 4 on strings 1, 2, and 3, 4. And that can also be played up here. And these are pretty common and easy to play, but it gets a little bit trickier when we start doing drop voicings for the inverted chords, first, second, and third inversion. We'll come up, for example, this major seventh inversion. This is in first inversion. Very nice. So after deriving all the possible drop voicings from a C7 in root position, we can conclude that as guitarists, we have a total of 9 string groups to work with when employing 4-part seventh chords. And we can also further conclude that stylistically, drop 2 and drop 3 are the conventional and more frequently used voicings, probably in bebop and most music, that is, while drop 2 and 3 and drop 2 and 4 are mainly used in post-bop and fusion settings. The final detail I want you to notice is that drop voicings are not inversions, as some players erroneously call them. If you look at the top note of all the drop voicings for the C7, you will see that they all retain the B flat on the highest voice. When the seventh of the chord is in the highest voice, traditional harmony considers it to be in root position. The remaining drop voices don't alter that fact. They are just dropped to widen the range of that root position chord. So, keeping this principle in mind, here is a summary of what you must remember if you want to identify the origin of any drop voicing. All drop voicings with the seventh in the highest voice are in root position. All drop voicings with a root or a ninth in the highest voice are in first inversion. All drop voicings with the third in the highest voice are in second inversion. All drop voicings with a 5th, 11th, or 13th in the highest voice are in third inversion. The procedure is the same for the 3 inversions remaining, so I'm not going to take up more of your time going through each one. Instead, for those of you who are getting antsy, I'm going to show you how I group them into 2-5-1s using drop 2s in string group 1, 2, 3, and 4. And be sure to stick with me because after this, I will show you how to incorporate upper extensions, which is how all those nice jazzy voicings are produced. So here we have a 2-5-1 in C major. Here it is with extensions. It's very common, nothing too jazzy. You'll notice that the D minor chord has the flatted 7 on the highest string. So this is a drop 2 in root position, as we've learned. The G7 has the 3rd on top, so this is a drop 2 in second inversion. Finally, the C major 7 has the 7 on the highest string, which means it is a drop 2 in root position. And there are 2 details we must observe when grouping them together. First, we must voice lead on the highest note as smoothly as possible from one chord to the next. So notice that from the D minor 7, the highest note, which is the 7th, moves down a half step to the highest voice of the G7, which is the 3rd. And finally, the G7 keeps the same note on the highest voice when switching to the C major 7, where that same note now becomes the 7th. And that is what is known as smooth voice leading. You want to strive for the shortest interval on the highest voice when transitioning between chords. And the second detail is to group 2-5-1s using the same type of drop voicings, at least for the most part. That is for technical reasons on this instrument. This will allow you to stay in the same group of strings as you play the progression, and this is very useful, especially at higher tempos. Now, having said all of this, many of you must be wondering how on earth you're going to work out all those chord families and their inversions into all the available drop voicing types. And you're right, that is a tremendous amount of work. So before you get too overwhelmed by all these possibilities, I want to mention that I have already done most of the hard work for you so you can devote your time to studying and playing. That is, I have prepared a mega study package you can download, which contains the following: a total of 20 PDFs featuring diagrams of every major and minor 2-5-1 in drop 2 and drop 3 voicings grouped into string groups 1-2-3-4, 2-3-4-5, 3-4-5-6, 1-2-3-5, and 2-3-4-6. And for each string group, you will find diagrams of each 2-5-1 with and without upper extensions. And you will learn all the different drop voicings in root position, first, second, and third inversion for the following chord types: minor 7ths, minor 7 flat 5s, dominant 7ths, dominant 7th altered chords, dominant 7 sharp 11 chords, and major 7th chords. This amounts to a total of 20 different voicings for each chord type. Included is also an additional 2 PDFs with all the diagrams summarizing the theory included in this lesson, and finally an added bonus of 4 PDFs demonstrating how to comp different variations over a jazz blues using the drop 2 voicings. A band in a box and MIDI file of each variation is also included. This is one of the most comprehensive and ready-to-apply studies on 2-5-1s using drop voicings that you will ever find. And you can download it for a nominal contribution from jazzguitar.richieselland.com/premium, and you will find it in the mini courses section. I'm going to use the first inversion of the C7 chord to show you how to incorporate upper extensions in each type of drop voicing. In a nutshell, we want to keep each drop voicing as a 4-part chord. And in order to incorporate any available extensions, we need to replace either the root or the 5th, or both of them with the extensions. Now, never omit the 3rd or 7th of the chord, or it will no longer sound like the intended chord. Also, with the exception of dominant flat 9 chords, never replace the root or 5th for an extension if it is in the lowest voice. So, first inversion here is physically out of our reach. If I try to play it, we normally have an E, Then we have a G, the 7th, and we have the root on top. So, wow. Oh my God. Something like that. Whoa. Okay, so let's turn this into a drop 2 voicing. And what we get is a very familiar shape. We all remember this one. Okay, and to incorporate the upper extensions, we can take the 5th and replace it for the 13, and we get this. And then we can do the same for the root. We can replace it for a 9th, and we get this. Or we can substitute both the 5th and the root, and we get a 9-13 dominant. But never, ever, like I said, get rid of the 7th or the 3rd. They are essential in the chord. So this drop 2 voicing can also be played up here in strings 2, 3, 4, and 5. And also in strings 3, 4, 5, and 6. Starts sounding kind of muddy down here, see? Got to use your ear on those. Okay, let's go to drop 3. And if we create a drop 3 voicing from this first inversion, what we get is this also familiar shape. And if we want to incorporate an upper extension, we can do so on the first string, and we get... We can't do anything with the 5th. We can't exchange it for a 13th because, like I said previously, when we have the 5th or the root on the bottom string or voice, if we exchange it, we're going to destroy the chord. And this can also be played down here. Okay, so let's look at a drop 2 and 3 voicing from this first inversion. And here we get something like this. Very similar sounding though. Of course, if we add the 9th on the first string, we get, which we can attempt to play in this bottom string group, but it's very hard, see? It's just not clear. Maybe if we try in a different key, but not a whole lot better. Let's move on to our final one, which is the drop 2 and 4. And from the first inversion, what we get is this one. And we can add the 9th here on the first string. Nice. We can also add the 13 by exchanging it for the 5th, and we get, very cool. This can also be played here. So there you have it, a comprehensive guide to create every type of drop voicing on guitar. And for those of you who are still with me, I would really appreciate your likes, comments, and welcome any questions you may have. And if this is your first time on this channel and you enjoyed this lesson, please be sure to subscribe and click on the bell icon so you will be notified of my upcoming lessons. Until we meet again, don't forget to practice, 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 and then practice some more. May peace be with you. Hasta la vista.